On January 25, 2015, the world was shocked to hear the news that 44 staff or Special Action Force of the Philippine National Police, these were elite fighters under the PNP, were massacred while they are doing their duty. In this episode of El Maestro Speaks podcast, let's take a look what happened. Welcome to another episode of El Maestro Speaks podcast.
The equivalent of love is forgiveness. You cannot love without forgiveness.
Lumabalin ka ng young generation handa kumamot nga mapasaran.
You find any inspiration in this we have done, and you have done your noble part.
El Maestro Speaks podcast.
This podcast was brought to you by CarlTech Repair Shop. CarlTech Repair Shop is the best gadget repair shop in the town of La Trinidad. If you're having problems with your gadgets, cell phones, tablets, laptops, and the likes, you can always bring it to the CarlTech's Repair Shop located at the Old Public Market, the second floor of the Old Public Market. And they also have another shop or another branch at the Balwag Center. You can always visit their Facebook page, CarlTech. It's also brought to you by Dems Auto Performance. You're having problem with your cars, you can bring it to Dems Auto Performance. This podcast is also brought to you by Millennial TECH. Millennial TECH is a gadget repair shop and appliance repair shop located at Abatan, Mankayan, Benguet. And before I forget, I would like to say that they can also install CCTV camera on your establishment. You can visit them at the Kubkubu building at Abatan, Bugyas, Benguet. This podcast is also brought to us by Cyspace Tech. Cyspace Tech specializes in software problems. You have problems with your softwares? With computers, you can always contact them through their Facebook page. They also design graphics for your tarpaulins, for your t-shirts, and for your mugs. And of course, this podcast is brought to you by MONAPHLORE, a poultry located at Cavite, Mankayan, Benguet. You can always contact them through their Facebook page, MONAPHLORE's Egg Poultry. All right, so um, during my solo podcast, I always do current events where I give my opinions to things happening around the world, and at times I do history. I do histories, especially the unheard histories of igorots, like we did on the story of this history of the Doctrine, the history of or history that the unheard history, unwritten history that igorots were unconquered for 300 years by the Spaniards. And still, we'll be doing the same. I'll just be separating them, naming one, um, what's happening, where I discuss issues, current issues happening in our world, and what happened, where I discuss the histories. And we'll be talking about. I'll be sharing my opinions on it, and you can always also you're also invited to share your opinions, writing on the comment section of Spotify. And if you're listening in or using YouTube, you can always comment on YouTube. So, like I said in my introduction, we would be discussing the story of the SAF 44. This event happened on January 25, 2015. Almost, it's 9 years ago. Yeah, happened 9 years ago. And I'd be doing this as a tribute to the SAF 44. And just an information here, when we talk about SAF 44, it's like a heavy, heavy burden for all the Cordillerans because it's about 40% of those 44 troopers that died are from the Cordilleras. So they are igorots. Most of them, 40% of them are. So um, they are our brothers. and we should always remember them, our heroes. Okay? And before I continue, I would like to, because what I'd be doing so that you won't be, because I have this, I have this style of, uh, what do you call this one? This was a topic vining where I talk about one certain topic and then I digress, moving to different topics, and it's very hard to return to what I'm talking to the first topic that I'm talking about. So what I'll be doing is I'll be reading an article that I took from the net. It was written by, let me see who wrote that one. This one here. Faith Onacario. I forgot the blog site, but looking at it and doing some research, and of course I followed the investigation when they were having a Senate investigation back in the day. So I followed it closely. So I saw the article and I saw it is uh, accurate. Uh, and that's why I'd be using this one. At the same time, I'd be using um, newspaper clippings from the Philippine Daily Inquirer. So let us start. Maybe at the same time, while I'm reading this one, I'd be giving some inputs from time to time, and that's um, and I hope I won't be lost while I'm reading this one here. Yeah. So let's start with the clash in Mama Sapano began with a raid to apprehend terrorists by the Philippine National Police Special Action Force. By the way, the SAF is like the Navy SEAL of the Philippine National Police. In fact, they were trained by the US Navy SEAL. So this was to apprehend a terrorist in Tukalalipaw, Mamasapano, Maguindanao, Philippines. It ended up being the PNP SAF forces' biggest loss when they were attacked by the forces of Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters and Moro Islamic Liberation Front. Marwan was in the region controlled by the rebel Moro Islamic Liberation Front, who was engaged in peace talks with the national government. When the when the Special Action Force of the Filipino Armed Forces conducted Oplan Exodus, the covert operation, as required by the agreement between the government and the MILF, the staff undertook the operation without notifying the MILF. The MILF and the SAF never planned to fight each other. Marwan's arrest warrant was about to be delivered by the SAF, and armed conflict ensued as an intended consequence, resulting in the death of the 44 SAF members, 18 MILF members, 5 Bangsamoro freedom fighters, and 5 civilians. And the operation's main target, the terrorist and bomb maker Zulkifli Abdir, or also known as Marwan. So the situation here is, the SAF are going to deliver the warrant as said by the article, but then at the same time there's something so they found that Marwan is living in an area controlled by the MILF. MILF, for those who doesn't know, are a rebel group aiming to have a, what do you call this one, an autonomous region for Muslims in the south. And same with the Bangsamoro freedom fighters. They also have the same objective. They want to have a separate, an autonomy from the central government where they can govern themselves so that they can implement what they call the Islam or the laws of Islam. I don't know the differences of what's the difference of their clamor. I mean, I mean, I don't know why they are being separated, right? So, um, why we have the Bangsamoro and the MILF, but basically these two groups, even though they're separate, are aiming to have an autonomous region. Okay, and during that time, there was this peace talk with the MILF. The same time, they're drawing the what do we call a constitution for the Bangsamoro or for the autonomous region or Muslim region. And as a part of the agreement, it was said that the forces of the government should never go in the MILF area without notifying the MILF. But then in this operation, the MILF were never notified that soft troopers are going to their area. Okay. Now we will know the reason later why this was done. And let's continue. The mission, the incident happened in the early morning hours of January 25, 2015. The mission was called Upland Exodus, mistakenly identified by local media as Upland Wolverine, which referred to previous operations aimed at neutralizing Marwan. So, um, catching Marwan, that was the mission. And it's very important to note that the PNP had been having, they have an intel or intelligence report that Marwan is in the Philippines. So they had been conducting operations to get him. Okay. Now, I don't know how many operations were conducted before the Upland Exodus. There's one here that happened on January 25, 2015, but they had more than one operations that failed. Now, the reason for that one is that Marwan always seems to know that the national forces are there to get him. That's why he's always a step ahead of them, and he always gets away. Okay? Now, that's one of the main reasons why the the leader of the leadership of the SAF or the SAF did not or chose not to inform the MILF because they were suspecting they don't know who to trust. That's why the MILF were not informed that the soft troopers are going to their area. At the same time, aside from that, the greatest ally of the national forces, the armed forces of the Philippines, the military, were not informed also. They were informed, according to the leadership of the South, they were informed time on target. Time on target, according to them, is that you're going to inform your ally when your troops are already on the ground conducting the operation. So the incident caused the Philippine Congress to halt the passage of the Bangsamoro Basic Law, effectively jeopardizing the government MILF peace process. Upland Exodus was designed to apprehend or kill Marwan, as well as other Malaysian terrorists or Moro Islamic Liberation Front leaders. Since the target has been neutralized, the mission was declared a success. Because of the gravity of the situation, the government peace panel intervened and requested a ceasefire from the MLF. The armed forces of the Philippines also carried out a rescue operation to save 29 SAF survivors who has been surrounded by the enemies. So that was like the gist of what happened during that time. So as this was happening, there's a lot of things to consider here because they do not want to break the peace talk. At the same time, they were scrambling to save what was remained, what the remaining SAF troopers in that area. So that's when the peace negotiators intervened. Uh, they asked the MLF to declare ceasefire, but that was that happened. The ceasefire happened, I think, after a day. I mean, it's the soft troopers has been fighting against those armed groups for hours, and only 29 of them uh, remained alive. And yeah, it's so heavy. So, uh, who was this Marwan that they apprehended? Okay, so the mission is a success actually because they were able to neutralize Marwan, but uh, the problem was then when they were trying to exit the operation area. That's when this incident happened. That's when the massacre happened. So Subkifli Abdir, commonly known as Marwan, was born on either the 5th of January 1966 or the 5th of October 1966 in Muar Johor, Malaysia. Zulkifli was known to use both of these birth dates. He was 5 feet 6 inches tall, 120 pounds, and he's fluent in Malay, Tagalog, English, and Arabic. Is it that if I don't know if you can notice this, but mostly most of those um, popular terrorist leaders are highly intelligent. You can remember for those who follow crime stories, you can remember the Unabomber of America. He's highly intelligent, and this guy too. Okay, this guy's a linguist. He can speak Malay, Tagalog, English, and Arabic fluently. So that's not just that's a very that's that's not a task. An ordinary guy cannot do that one. So Kivli attended Malaysian boarding school before training as an engineer in the United States. He abruptly left his 10 siblings and 3 children after his training to join terrorist activities. On the list of most wanted terrorists in the United States, the Federal Bureau of Investigations offered 5 million reward for information leading to his capture. He was the designer of bombs that were used or that were delivered to various terrorist groups. So we have his background here. We have first was Zulkifli was wanted on suspicion of supplying bombs to various terrorist groups around the world. He was also suspected in instructing terrorists on how to make bombs. Azahari Yosin, a terrorist group, taught Zulkifli how to make IEDs. He was involved in the construction of bombs for the Abu Sayyaf. Abu Sayyaf is also a terrorist group located in the southern Philippines. They were known, they were very popular in the end of the 1990s. That was around 98. And they were popular during that time because of um, the kidnapping that they did for those American missionary couples. I forgot the name. Zulkifli was suspected of leading the Kumpulan Mujahideen Malaysia, a Southeast Asian Indonesian terrorist organization. The KMM was a component of the international terrorist group Jemaah Islamiyah. Zulkifli was thought to be a member of its central command. The Jemaah Islamiyah is the primary perpetrator of the devastating Bali bombings in 2002, as well as numerous other attacks in Southeast Asia in which Zulkifli is suspected of being involved. Abdir also co-founded the terrorist group Khalifa Islamiyah in Mindanao. Malaysian government initially wanted him for the murder of a Christian member of their parliament in 2000. That is an attack backed by the Al Qaeda. He continued to engage in militant Islamic activity and terrorist bombings while hiding in Mindanao under the protection of the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters. According to a military source, Zulkifli was involved in training local jihadist volunteers to join the Islamic State, along with the Southern East Asian militants. This was reported after BIFF declared its allegiance in helping the ISIS cause. Sources estimate that during his militant activity in Mindanao, he may have trained up to 300 terrorists in explosive use, detonation, and building. On January 26, 2015, a news outlet reported that Jemaah Islamiyah, in collaboration with Zulkifli, planned to bomb or to a bomb or planted a bomb to be detonated as the Papal convoy drove to TM. On January 18, Calao Street in Manila was closed. Another attempt on Pope's life, according to the source, was planned the day before but was thwarted by the changes in Pope's plans. The Philippine police have denied the veracity of this report. The other targets was Ahmad Usman Batubato, also known as Abdul Basit Usman, who was Filipino terrorist and bomb maker who led the Special Operations Group of the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters and had ties with the militant groups Abu Sayyaf and Jemaah Islamiyah. Or what's the name of this guy? Basit Usman was born 1974 in Labu-Labu, a village in Sharif Aguac, Maguindanao, in the southern Philippines. He worked as an overseas Filipino in Pakistan before becoming involved in militant activities. While Solkivli Abdir was killed in the raid, Osman escaped and fled into the Liguasan Marsh. To find and capture him, military and Moro Islamic Freedom Liberation Front launched offensives. Abdul Basit Usman led the Special Operations Group of the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters and had ties to the militant groups Abu Sayyaf and Jemaah Islamiyah. Usman was on the list of the United States Reward for Justice program, which offered a $1 million reward for his capture. However, after the months of manhunting, Usman was killed in an encounter with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front on the 3rd of May 2015 in Gindulungan, Maguindanao. One of his bodyguards was suspected of murdering him in order to collect the 1 million bounty on his head. The Armed Forces of the Philippines later retracted that claim, confirming Usman's death at the hands of Moro Islamic Liberation Front. So there was two targets during that time, and the SAF were able to neutralize the the guy Marwan, and the Usman was able to escape, but later, months later, he was killed. The SAF's heroic stand, though cornered and encircled by the SAF troopers, the SAF troopers made a heroic stand, holding the ground, returning fire bullet for bullet until 44 men were mortally wounded. It was during the fighting that SAF troopers demonstrated their fighting skills. Outnumbered, never outfought. Many of the tourists were also killed and dragged by the comrades after the fighting. But the most disturbing was that the military was not informed about upland exodus until the last minute, when fighting erupted between the SAF troopers and the terrorists who ambushed the 475-man SAF troopers. During a congressional hearing on the Mamasapano massacre, it was claimed that they were informed on time and on target. Whatever that means, the military, on the other hand, stated that time on target means their artillery is ready to fire at any time, but there was none on this case. Had there been prior coordination, the outcome of the Operation Exodus would have been a victory in the government's war on terror that would have made the country proud. However, a blunder cost the lives of the SAF troopers who will never be forgotten. So, just to add a detail here, accordingly, like what I said a while ago, is that there were a lot of operations being conducted to catch this Marwan guy, but most of them failed because there was a leak of information. Now, the soft leadership chose to uh, do the operation secretly of course, with the blessing of their commander in chief, the president during that time. But then, accordingly, yeah, it's very important to highlight this one. So there was this. The story has a lot of layers here. There's a lot of things happening. There is this uh, peace talk with the rebels that should not be disturbed. There's this the headship or the leadership of the Philippine National Police. The chief is suspended during that time, and still, and yeah, this operation happening. So the SAF trooper suggested that the the operation be done in secret, um, and that the military will be informed time on target. Accordingly, military lingo, that means they will be informed when the operation is already beginning. Um, the the suspended chief of police said that he's going to be informing. He's going to be the one informing the other leaderships in the military branch, and I didn't think he did it. So there's a lot of things happening here. Um, uh, I I don't even know in the part of the military if um, maybe it's understandable that because they were informed late that they were not ready to prepare the things that they need in order to rescue the 44 troopers. This, the fallen lawmen had to give their lives so that people could live in freedom and safety in their own homes. The SAF 44's tragic loss is a lesson we must never forget. Their lives are priceless. Our fallen SAF 44, like generations of warrior heroes before them, gave everything that they had for something greater than themselves. May the memories of the gallant 44 serve as a constant inspiration to strengthen our faith in God and to continue our sworn duty to protect the public from lawless elements, criminal acts, terrorism, and the drug trade that ruins our children's future. We have always remembered the bravery of the 44 Special Action Forces personnel who were killed in an anti-terrorist operation in Umasapan, Maguindanao years ago, saying that their deaths are strong demonstration that police officers are always ready to carry out their mission despite the odds and difficulties along the way. This was written by Faith Olnecario, published in 2022. So, of course, yeah, she's right that we should never forget that these guys did something. Oh, they have given everything for something that is greater than all of us, and they died for our country. Okay, um, if you want the more information about how these guys, or you want to watch or reminisce how these guys, how these 44 guys, I mean, and their companies um, offer their life. There is a new movie right now in Netflix. The title is Mama Sapano. Now it can be told. Okay. Now, if you look at the story, the story on the article was cut short, you know. But then the story of these guys is a lot of layers. Uh, why or what happened? Why is it that 44 of them were killed? They were soft, right? They are highly trained. They're highly trained operators that can operate anywhere. Um, but the thing is, they were in a great disadvantage uh, on the battlefield itself. At the same time, the the facets of politics and issues, situations involved during that time. First and foremost, that the peace talks going on during that time that has those guidelines and things that needs to be followed. uh, the the chain of command and the channels of communications that was bungled during that time. I'd say bungled because it's very difficult to, if you have seen this, the Senate investigations, everyone is passing blame during that time. Uh, and I believe the leadership of, I believe what was done, the leadership of the South uh, was have done everything to protect his men in the performance of this operation, though it failed. But then still he's in the term of the military command liabilities, still liable for those. But a lot of things happen here that it's very difficult to unravel how and what happened. But all I can say is that there's one thing here that's sure, that this guy died for something greater than every one of us. And they have dedicated, they selflessly dedicated their life in order for us to be safe, like what the article said. And that should never be forgotten. That's why I highly recommend that we should, uh, yes, as a tribute to this guys here. Yeah, you can you can see their heroism immortalized through movie, through the movie Mama Sapano. It can now it can be told, and you can also understand what happened there. um, I'm really treading carefully here so that we won't be passing blame because that was done already, right? What I want here, that's why I talked about this in this podcast, is that until now, it's almost a decade now, and nobody was punished for the shortcoming that happened during that day. Like someone has to answer that, right? Oh, the bottom line, if I'm going to highlight the bottom, the main reason why that happened is the poor leadership, right? And the thing that we can learn from that thing, from that situation, is that the leadership during that time has don't have what we call the extreme ownership attitude. They wouldn't like to own the situation. Still, until now, uh, how many investigations happened during that time? There was like, who is that? Let me see. There was like three investigation that happened. One from the Senate. I think there's four. The Senate from the lower Congress. Two Senate investigations. One from the Congress. That's three. And then the BOI. And still, nobody was held liable for that one. And the reason why I want somebody to be held liable is it would give, at least it would give peace, it would lighten the load of the members and families, the family members of the SAF troopers that sacrificed their life. There was this very interesting one question back then when they're having, the SAF troopers are having dialogue with the ALG secretary. It's like the right hand man of the president. It would seem, one SAF trooper said that it would seem that the Philippines is not worth dying for anymore with this thing that happened. because during that time you can feel that the the commander in chief of these troopers seemed, I don't know, indifferent of this situation. The indifference is the word that I can find right now to define the situation, because when the bodies of those SAF troopers arrived at an airport, um, the commander in chief was not there. He was in another event, you know. Um, During the investigation, during the time that he would speak about the SAF troopers, he would be passing blame to the officers, to the leadership of the staff, uh, never wanting to admit liability. I mean, admit responsibility or what happened. That's what I'm looking actually until now. That's what I'm looking to those leadership, the acceptance of responsibility. You have to own your action. Um, a particular guy was became very popular because of this situation. The mayor of Baguio right now, he headed the investigation or the board of inquiry, and that committee was tasked to investigate the situation. And he boldly stated in his report that the commander in chief, has some liability on what happened. And until now, no one was persecuted because no one was persecuted from. I mean, in that incident, nobody was punished. We're still waiting what's going to be happening, you know. And on January 25 of this year marks the ninth year of that incident. Are the families of these guys or these troopers still be waiting for who's going to be punished? I don't know. But the question remains, are the Filipinos worth dying for? Yes, they are. We are not a perfect country. We're not perfect. We're not perfect. We have frailties in many ways. But as a nation, we're struggling and we're trying to move forward. We're trying to be better. And that's the Filipino spirit. That's worth dying for. And as a closing, I would like to narrate the names of those troopers that dedicated their life. Again, you guys are the hero of this new generation. You dedicated your life to the service of all the Filipino nation. And we salute you. All of you, you guys are great. Police Senior Inspector Ryan Ballesteros Valinas, thank you for your service. Police Senior Inspector Gary Aranya, thank you for your service. Police Senior Inspector Cyrus Paluyan Aniban, thank you for your service. Police Senior Inspector Jednat Tabdi, thank you, sir. Police Senior Inspector Joey Sacristan Gamutan, thank you. Police Senior Inspector Rene Lumasag Tyrus, thank you, sir. Senior Police Officer 1 Lover Inocentia, maraming salamat po. Police Officer 3 Rodrigo Jacob Jr., thank you for your service. Police Officer 3 Virgil S. Villanueva, thank you, sir. Police Officer Andres Viernes Doque Jr., Police Officer 3, Victoriano Nacion Cain. Thank you, mga sirs. Police Officer 3, Noel Unangoy Golokan. Thank you for your service. Police Officer 3, Jonrel Cavite. Police Officer 3, Jedsin Abubakar Sjali. Thank you, sir. Police Officer 3, Robert Damulo Aliaga. Police Officer 3, John Lloyd Rebamonte Sombilia. Police Officer 2, Aman Miswari Esmulan. Thank you, sir. Police Officer 2, Peterzon I. Karap. Police Officer 2, Roger Cordero. Police Officer 2, Nikki Tisi Nasino Jr. Police Officer 2, Glenn Beresio Pedwa. Thank you, mga sirs. Police Officer 2, Cham Gokong Agabon. Police Officer 2, Richel Salangan Baluga. Police Officer 2, Noel Nebrida Balaca. Police Officer 2, Joel Bimidang Dulnuan. Police Officer 2, Godofredo Basak Cabanlet. Thank you, sir. Police Officer 2, Franklin Kadap Danao. Police Officer 2, Walner Faustino Danao. Police Officer 2, Jerry Dailay Kayo. Thank you, sir. Police Officer 2, Noble Sungay Kiangan. Thank you, sir. Police Officer 2, Ephraim G. Mejia. Police Officer 2, Omar Agasem Nacionales. Police Officer 2, Rodel Eva Ramapula. Police Officer 2, Romeo Valles Senin II. Police Officer 1, Russell Bawaan Bilog. Thank you, sir. Police Officer 1, Angel Jamat. Police Officer 1, Windel Liano Candano. Police Officer 1, Loreto Guyab Kapinding II. Police Officer 1, Gringo Charag Kayango. Yes, sir. Police Officer 1, Romeo Kumanoy Sempron. Police Officer 1, Mark Lori or Loki Clemencio. Yes, sir. Police Officer 1, Joseph Gumatay Sagunoy. Sir. Police Officer 1, Olibeth Ligutan Viernes. Ladies and gentlemen, the SAF 44, the heroes of the Philippines.